Chapter 387. Su Chunhua sighed. Li Fuchen was already stunning enough, but Li Fuchen was a darkness bone frame. There were only a few special bone frames in the entire Violet Flower Kingdom. It was an honorable defeat to be defeated by such a person. I hope this defeat won't reduce your fighting spirit. Su Chunhua had high hopes for Li Fuchen. With legendary perception, as long as Li Fuchen was given high-grade cultivation techniques and martial arts, he might not be inferior to the special bone frames after a few years. The contest stage was completely immersed in darkness and not even sunlight could shine in. Just as everyone thought the outcome was decided, a green spot of light suddenly appeared in the darkness. Immediately after, the green spot of light rapidly expanded at a speed that was hard to be seen by the naked eye. This is... The gray-robed Vice Dean widened his eyes. He was one of the few people present who knew about the Earth-class low-tier sword art that Li Fuchen had chosen. No one below the battle spirit realm could cultivate the green sun sword intent to the completion stage. As a battle spirit realm master, he had cultivated the green sun sword intent to the extremity. Therefore, he was very clear about the difficulty of cultivating the green sun sword intent. It wasn't exaggerating to say that the cultivation difficulty of this sword art was almost comparable to Earth-class mid-tier sword arts. Furthermore, it was very strange as everyone's green sun sword intent would have different power. If the same class of martial arts was cultivated by different people, there would at most be a slight difference, but not a huge difference. But the green sun sword intent broke this law. The power of the green sun sword intent that he had comprehended was almost at the pinnacle of a low-tier Earth-class sword art. It had yet to reach the level of a mid-tier Earth-class sword art. However, the Dean's green sun sword intent had reached the level of a mid-tier Earth-class sword art. According to the Dean, the power of the green sun sword intent was dependent on the understanding of heaven and earth's quintessence. The stronger the perception, the stronger the green sun sword intent. The move would also be stronger along with the sword intent, and there was almost no framework to speak of. Could Li Fuchen have cultivated the green sun sword intent? The gray-robed elder held his breath. Apart from the gray-robed elder, everyone noticed the anomaly on the contest stage. Even with the isolation of the array, they could vaguely feel the birth of a magnificent and brilliant sword intent. In the blink of an eye, the cyan speck of light had transformed into a huge cyan ball of light. The cyan ball of light was like a sun, bursting with thousands of rays of light. Most of the rays of light shot out in one direction. Puff, puff, puff. The darkness quickly dispersed. On the martial stage, Li Fuchen was standing in the air while his body still had remnants of the resplendent sword intent. On the other side, Wang Heilong's body continuously spurted blood, his eyes filled with shock. His dark energy was actually unable to devour the sword light. It was directly penetrated by the sword light. What kind of power and speed was this? Green sun sword intent. Su Chunhua exclaimed. The instructors of Class A were also dumbfounded. Li Fuchen actually cultivated green sun sword intent, and from the looks of it, it was at least subcompletion. On the rostrum, the Outer Academy elders were also very surprised. Among them, there were a few who had nothing to do and cultivated the green sun sword intent, but none of them were able to cultivate it to the completion stage. It seemed that Li Fuchen's green sun sword intent was even more magnificent and everlasting. What? He actually broke through the power of darkness? Zhang Yunfeng's eyes narrowed. Although he had the strength to defeat Wang Heilong, he was unable to do so in such a straightforward manner. At this moment, he no longer had the confidence to defeat Li Fuchen. Interesting. A hint of battle intent flashed in Dijun's eyes. Of course, it was just a trace of battle intent. With the completion stage of the Cloud Startle Spear art, he only needed a single spear strike to defeat Wang Heilong. There was no need for a second spear strike. He won. Luo Yen was a little dumbfounded. She thought that Li Fuchen was going to lose. Wang Heilong's power of darkness was broken. What kind of sword art is this? Why is it so insane? It is the green sun sword intent. It is the hardest martial art to cultivate below Earth-class high-tier martial arts in the South Forest Martial Institution. For the past 20 years, No Outer Institute cadet has chosen the Green Sun Sword intent. Terrifying. I didn't expect the Green Sun Sword intent to be so powerful. A single sword strike broke Wang Heilong's power of darkness. After I pass the 5th floor of the Green Cloud Pagoda, should I also choose the Green Sun Sword intent? Once I cultivate it, my strength will increase greatly. I advise you not to choose. Do you think everyone is like Li Fuchen with legendary perception? In the audience seats, the Outer Institute cadets were in a heated discussion. The Green Sun Sword intent is indeed powerful. The feeling of practicing alone and sparring with others was entirely different. Especially when the entire contest stage was enveloped in darkness, it gave Li Fuchen some inspiration. Once the Green Sun Sword intent was executed, it felt as though a myriad of radiance burst out and was unstoppable. To Li Fuchen, the Green Sun Sword intent was just a little difficult to enter the entry stage. As long as he entered the entry stage, nothing could stop him. If it was someone else, they would need to spend a few times or even 10 times more time to enter the entry stage. Every little bit of progress would require even more time. This child's perception is simply terrifying. The gray-robed elder nodded and had the thought of accepting Li Fuchen as an in-room cadet. The prerequisite was that the dean wouldn't snatch Li Fuchen from him. After defeating Wang Heilong, Li Fuchen was already in the top 3 of the listed cadets. The only suspense was whether Li Fuchen could defeat Zhang Yunfeng or Di Jun. Before this, no one believed that Li Fuchen or Wang Heilong would be able to do it. But once the Green Sun Sword intent was executed, it was hard to say. Back then, the situation reversed too quickly. Everyone only saw the myriad of radiance bursting out and didn't see how Li Fuchen executed his sword. A few more rounds of matches passed. Number 8 contest stage, Zhang Yunfeng against Li Fuchen. As the referee's voice echoed, the audience seats got lively. Whether Li Fuchen had the strength to challenge Di Jun. It would all depend on the match with Zhang Yunfeng. If Li Fuchen wasn't a match for Zhang Yunfeng, he naturally wouldn't be a match for Di Jun. If Li Fuchen was slightly superior to Zhang Yunfeng, he might have some hope. On the contest stage, Zhang Yunfeng looked at Li Fuchen with a grave expression. As for Li Fuchen, he was rather impressed. It had been a long time since the South Forest Martial Institution had such a formidable freshman. After taking a deep breath, Zhang Yunfeng started to circulate the Earth-class low-tier cultivation technique. The Earth-class low-tier cultivation technique that he cultivated was called the Scarlet Divine Technique, and he had already cultivated it to the 21st rank. The 20th level of a low-tier Earth-class cultivation technique was already much stronger than a peak-tier Mystic-class cultivation technique. As for the 21st level, it was an entire level stronger. As Zhang Yunfeng circulated the Scarlet Metal Divine Art, an invincible aura rose up. The martial stage was covered with a layer of scarlet metallic luster. With Zhang Yunfeng as the center, it spread out in all directions. Such intense pressure. Li Fuchen raised his brows. Zhang Yunfeng's body already had the fledgling stage power of field. When the Qi presence and the fledgling stage power of field were combined, the pressure produced was extremely powerful, and it wasn't just one rank stronger than Wu Jiqiang. Even Wang Heilong's power of darkness was inferior. It wasn't over yet. Zhang Yunfeng activated the 5-star secret technique, and his Qi presence continued to rise. The air on the contest stage seemed to have solidified, and it was difficult to move forward. Li Fuchen, be careful now. Zhang Yunfeng drew his long saber and pointed it at Li Fuchen. Please. Li Fuchen had already circulated his cultivation technique and 5-star secret technique. He had also drawn the joint heaven sword. Returnless golden saber slash. When the Qi presence reached the extremity, Zhang Yunfeng flashed and broke through the air. While he was in the air, his long saber burst out with golden luster, and a series of golden saber shadows cleaved at Li Fuchen. They were both saber users, but Zhang Yunfeng's Qi and saber art were superior to Wu Jiqiang. The valiant saber presence was extremely condensed and caused Li Fuchen's skin to feel some pain. Just in time. The Qi in Li Fuchen's body circulated and naturally gathered into an extremely concentrated green spot of light. The green spot of light burst out, and with Li Fuchen as the center, there was a myriad of radiance that was extremely resplendent. At the same moment, most of the radiance was restricted in one direction and burst at Zhang Yunfeng. Clang, 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 clang. If one didn't cross moves with Li Fuchen, one wouldn't know that the green sun sword intent was extremely sharp and tyrannical. Zhang Yunfeng's golden saber shadows were all crushed by the powerful sword lights. The speed seemed to be much faster than the meteor fall sword move. How could Zhang Yunfeng know that the green sun sword intent was more than 2 times faster than the meteor fall? Furthermore, it was much more concentrated. Otherwise, it wouldn't be able to penetrate Wang Heilong's power of darkness. Of course, the meteor fall hadn't broken through yet. If it broke through to the Earth-class low tier, it would be hard to say. At least, its single target attack shouldn't be weaker than the green sun sword intent. I can't block it? Zhang Yunfeng was forced to retreat and his saber presence was weakened. The returnless golden saber slash was particular about the chi presence and saber presence. When the chi presence was suppressed, the saber art's power would also decrease. The green sun sword intense sword moves were faster than the previous ones. It was so fast that Zhang Yunfeng didn't even have time to organize a counterattack. The resplendent sword intent was seemingly endless. Clang. Zhang Yunfeng's long saber flew out of his hand and a sword light brushed past his throat. Zhang Yunfeng's expression changed as he said bitterly, "I have lost." He was convinced of his loss. Li Fuchen, who had comprehended the green sun sword intent, was 1 level stronger than him. Perhaps, only Di Jun could defeat him. Zhang Yunfeng has also lost. The green sun sword intent is indeed formidable. This green sun sword intent is too terrifying. Each sword move is faster than the previous one. How can one defend against it? Last year, Di Jun was only slightly stronger than Zhang Yunfeng. I'm afraid he isn't a match for Li Fuchen. Li Fuchen's performance on the stage had made everyone take a deep, cold breath. None of them were optimistic about Di Jun. Di Jun sneered and didn't say anything. Unknowingly, there were less than 20 contestants that were qualified to continue. Martial stage number 2, Di Jun against Wang Heilong. Wang Heilong's injuries had been treated by the Outer Institute's upper echelons and had almost recovered. When facing Di Jun, he immediately burst out with the power of darkness. One spear. Di Jun took out a silver spear and said indifferently, "Bring it on." Wang Heilong spoke in a deep voice. Boom. A boundless and vast chi presence rushed into the sky. This chi presence was even stronger than Zhang Yunfeng. Zhang Yunfeng cultivated the Scarlet Metal Divine Technique, while Di Jun cultivated the Cloud Dividing Divine Technique. If the Scarlet Metal Divine Technique was indestructible and extremely condensed, then the Cloud Dividing Divine Technique was tyrannical and vast. Before the chi presence reached the limits, Di Jun thrust with his spear. This was a terrifying spear thrust. When the spear thrust was executed, a layer of white chi force extended out. The spear tip was like a silver bolt of lightning. With a thunderous chi presence, the spear pierced through Wang Heilong's body. Wang Heilong looked down at his body and his eyes were filled with horror. Chapter 388. Defeating Wang Heilong with a single spear strike. Is this Di Jun's strength? The first on the human list is indeed the first on the human list. How domineering! The crowd was in an uproar. Di Jun's strength exceeded everyone's expectations. Hee, Di Jun's Cloud Startle Spear art is already at the completion stage. Those first-level reincarnation realm martial artists who have never cultivated Earth-class manuals would be stabbed to death by Di Jun's spear without any suspense. Class 3 Mentor Gu Lai grinned and laughed. Su Chunhua pursed her lips and said nothing. Di Jun's strength was obvious to all. He naturally couldn't refute, but he didn't think that Li Fuchen had no hope at all. The Green Sun Sword intent was one of the most famous sword arts in the South Forest Martial Institution. It must be mystical and extraordinary, far beyond the Cloud Startling Spear art. He just didn't know what rank Li Fuchen had cultivated the Green Sun Sword intent to. Below the stage, Zhang Yunfeng shook his head and thought to himself, Li Fuchen, your luck is truly bad. If it was the Di Jun from 1 month ago, he wouldn't be a match for you. But now that the Cloud Startle Spear art is at the completion stage, even if you and I work together, we wouldn't be a threat to Dijun. There was a huge difference between mastering a low-tier Earth-class martial art or not. It wasn't just the difference in profundity and power. Most importantly, once a low-tier Earth realm martial art was mastered, it could produce a domain power. Under the suppression of the domain power, who could fight? There were only a few rounds left in the competition. In the second-to-last round, Zhang Yunfeng would face off against Wang Heilong. Wang Heilong had been injured twice, affecting his condition somewhat. In the end, he was no match for Zhang Yunfeng. The last round. Dijun against Li Fuchen. The judge took a deep breath and said loudly. Holding his spear, Dijun appeared on the stage. His aura was concealed, but it still gave off an enormous pressure. This was the change brought about by the Cloud Startling Spear art that had been cultivated to the large success stage. On the opposite side, Li Fuchen had also flashed over. Sizing up Li Fuchen, Dijun said indifferently, 10 spears. He would be able to defeat Li Fuchen in 10 spear strikes. Apart from Li Fuchen, no one else, including Zhang Yunfeng, would be able to withstand a single spear strike from him. Overestimating yourself isn't a good thing. Li Fuchen admitted that the current Dijun was a formidable foe. He only had 60% confidence in defeating Dijun. But it was enough. Although Dijun's Cloud Startling Spear art had reached the large success stage, his Azure Yang Sword intent was also close to the large success stage. The level of the Green Sun Sword intent far surpassed the Cloud Startling Spear art. Overestimated? Not necessarily. Dijun's chi presence started to converge and climb. The 21st rank of the Cloud Separating Divine technique was complemented by a 5-star secret technique, allowing Dijun's chi presence to suppress Li Fuchen. If it was someone with a weaker spirit will, they would probably reveal cowardice before the battle even started. It would already be praiseworthy if they could utilize 30% to 40% of their strength. But to Li Fuchen, this chi presence wasn't worth mentioning and wasn't enough to make him fearful. Of course, his strength was definitely suppressed. After all, his opponent's aura was indeed a level stronger than his. But it was only suppressed by about 10 to 20%. From this point of view, Wang Heilong's power of darkness was truly heaven-defying. Once Wang Heilong's power of darkness burst out along with his chi, it was enough to devour the opponent's chi prowess. Back then, Li Fuchen's strength was suppressed by 30%. This was because Wang Heilong's cultivation technique was not as high-leveled as Dijun's. If Wang Heilong's power of darkness was combined with Dijun's 21st level of the Cloud Separating Divine art, it would not only suppress Wang Heilong's strength by 30%, but at least 50%. Special bone frames had the potential to be invincible in the same realm, and it wasn't just for show. First spear. Dijun's chi prowess was rising very quickly, and in the blink of the eye, it had reached the apex. But it wasn't over yet. When Dijun executed the Cloud Startle Spear art's first spear, the intense spear presence and chi prowess combined, causing his chi prowess to rise again. Boom! Like a monstrous wave, Dijun thrust his spear forward. The Cloud Startle Spear art and the Cloud Startle Divine art had a complementary effect. This spear move was extremely swift and violent. Dijun was confident he could stab a regular first-level Reincarnation Realm martial artist to death with this spear move. The white chi force spread out in circles. The silver spear tip was like a silver bolt of lightning. Due to the extreme speed, there were traces of silver electric arcs bursting out. At the same moment, there was an invisible power that combined with the chi prowess and the spear presence, enveloping Li Fuchen. Dijun was confident this spear move would be able to injure Li Fuchen even if it couldn't defeat him. 10 spear moves was actually a modest statement. To be serious, he only needed 3 spear moves to defeat Li Fuchen. Power of field, huh? Li Fuchen had already circulated his cultivation technique and secret technique. After Dijun thrust his spear, the Green Sun Sword intent instantly burst out. When dealing with Wang Heilong and Zhang Yunfeng earlier, Li Fuchen didn't execute the Green Sun Sword intent to the limits. Right now, inside Li Fuchen's body, there was a lump of green light that was several times larger than the green spot of light. Boom! A horrific invisible power combined with the chi prowess and extended out. Bang boom. Countless explosions could be heard in the void. At this moment, Dijun's attack hadn't even gotten close to Li Fuchen. Power of field? There was a flash of light in Dijun's mind while his heart shivered. Li Fuchen's green sun sword intent had actually produced the power of field. It had immediately neutralized Dijun's cloud startle spear field. No, it was slightly suppressed. In the next moment, a blinding light burst over and clashed with the silver lightning spear tip. Clang. There was an intense metallic explosion. In between the duo, there were countless flashes of lightning and sparks. In that instant, half of the martial stage was covered with flashes of lightning and sparks. It was simply unbelievably resplendent. Thud, thud, thud. The duo burst out in retreat at the same time, and it seemed like they were evenly matched. He blocked it. Plenty of people rubbed their eyes as the martial stage was too resplendent and they couldn't see clearly. The green sun sword intent has already produced the green sun sword field. Could his green sun sword intent be at the completion stage? The gray-robed elder was shocked. The 9th level of Heaven Dipper realm and the completion stage of the green sun sword intent was unbelievable. But the facts couldn't be refuted. Otherwise, how was Li Fuchen able to block Dijun's completion stage cloud startle spear art? Completion stage green sun sword intent. Those outer institute elders who cultivated the green sun sword intent looked at each other in dismay. As peak-level reincarnation realm martial artists, they weren't able to cultivate the green sun sword intent to the completion stage, but Li Fuchen did it. He simply wasn't human. They didn't know that Li Fuchen hadn't cultivated the green sun sword intent to the completion stage. The reason why he was able to produce the green sun sword field was because he reckoned that the green sun sword intent that he comprehended wasn't at the earth class low tier, but at the earth class mid tier. The completion stage of an earth class mid tier martial art was comparable to the trance stage of an earth class low tier martial art. Li Fuchen wasn't able to cultivate the green sun sword intent to the completion stage, but he was already close. When using his full strength, Li Fuchen was even able to restrict the sword light to a single direction, preventing it from overflowing. A single sword move was enough to shock everyone. No one had ever seen such a formidable freshman. He had only been in the academy for 3 months. If he had been in the academy for 1 or 2 years, how incredible would it be? He would probably be able to instantly kill the current Dijun. How did he cultivate? Is this the legendary perception? Zhang Yunfeng's mouth was wide open and couldn't close it for a long time. Dijun was so formidable because he had been in the academy for over 4 years. Li Fuchen had only been in the academy for 3 months. Zhang Yunfeng admitted that he was dealt a blow. As compared to Li Fuchen, he was simply a weak chicken. Gulai, it seems like Dijun might not win. Su Chunhua might be shocked, but it was more important to deal a blow to Gulai. Gulai sneered, "This is just the beginning. Then let's wait and see." Su Chunhua continued to look at the contest stage. Dijun had a gloomy expression. He seemed to have underestimated Li Fuchen. But this wasn't important. There were still 9 more spear moves and he didn't believe that Li Fuchen could block the next 9 spear moves. Second spear move. Dijun yelled out and thrust his spear at Li Fuchen. When the spear thrust was executed, all of the chi presence and spear presence were surging at Li Fuchen. It had the prowess of breaking through the clouds. Seal. Li Fuchen brandished the joint heaven sword and burst out with blinding sword light. Clang, clang, clang. There was a series of metallic explosions. Third spear move, fourth spear move. In the blink of the eye, Dijun had already executed 9 spear moves and was left with the final spear move. All-powerful. Dijun squeezed out all of his strength and thrust with the kill move of the cloud startle spear art. Bang. Over a dozen meandering electric arcs were like violent dragons. With the silver spearhead as the starting point, they burst out in all directions. This wasn't a thunderbolt spear art. If it was a thunderbolt spear art, it wouldn't be exaggerated to produce so many electric arcs. But to produce electric arcs with the cloud startle spear art, it was imaginable how horrific this spear move was and how concentrated the chi was. Just in time. Li Fuchen wielded his sword with both hands and thrust brazenly. As the sword thrust was executed, a myriad of radiance converged into a single beam. Without any sound or presence, a giant energy ball was produced and immediately exploded. Li Fuchen and Di Jun were both sent flying. The 10th spear move was executed and Di Jun didn't have the upper hand, let alone defeating Li Fuchen. Now it is my turn, Li Fuchen stated. Di Jun didn't say anything but his eyes were filled with cold intent. Sect origin swords. Li Fuchen burst out with a yell while the surrounding void was filled with sword chi. With a rough glance, there were at least tens of thousands of sword chi. Go! Li Fuchen pointed with his left hand and tens of thousands of sword chi were shot at Di Jun, another 5-star secret technique. Di Jun sneered and brandished his spear to cleave apart the sword chi. There were times when hundreds or thousands of sword chi would be blasted by his spear. 5-star secret techniques were nothing to him, unless Li Fuchen had a 6-star secret technique. But when tens of thousands of sword chi attacked, Di Jun's attention was diverted as he had to be wary of Li Fuchen's kill move. Descend. Seeing that less than half of the sword chi was left, Li Fuchen brandished his left hand. Swish, 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 swish. The remaining half of the sword chi were all shot at Di Jun. The burst of power was enough to frighten Di Jun. Defeat. Li Fuchen flashed in front of Di Jun and brandished his sword. Thousands of radiance spread out in a fan shape and complemented with the tens of thousands of sword chi in the sky. Di Jun wished he could grow 3 heads and 6 arms. Di Jun vomited a mouthful of fresh blood while dozens of sword wounds appeared on his body. With his strength, he was able to block the tens of thousands of sword chi, but he couldn't divert his attention to deal with Li Fuchen's green sun sword intent. Chapter 389. Gulai, this time, my student took the first place. I am sorry. The moment Li Fuchen won, Su Chunhua was so excited that he nearly jumped out. It was too unexpected, truly too unexpected. When facing Di Jun, who was at the completion stage of the Cloud Startle Spear art, Li Fuchen was able to defeat him. As a mentor, it was as though he was smashed by a pie from the sky and he was in a daze. Next door, Gu Lai's expression was as awful as it could get. It wasn't just a loss of face. Most importantly, the 1,000 mentor points had been reduced by half and turned into 500. This was simply cutting off his flesh. Perhaps, these 500 mentor points would delay him for many years before he could become an inner institute mentor. After all, 500 mentor points required 3 listed cadets to make up for it. When one was unlucky, it was normal to not nurture a single listed cadet for a few years. Just like Su Chunhua, he didn't nurture a single listed cadet for a few years. Face was important, but so was substance. Right now, he didn't even have any substance to his face. This is truly uncanny, Gu Lai said with indignation. Mentor Su, congratulations. The mentors of the other classes congratulated Su Chunhua. Su Chunhua nodded with a smile and was feeling proud of his success. Vice Dean, this child's perception is rarely seen in a century. I reckon that even the dean will be tempted. On the rostrum, all the outer institute elders were lamenting. The gray-robed elder nodded. The dean should be coming back in these few days. If he doesn't accept him, I will. As the South Forest Martial Institution's vice dean, he had only accepted 3 in-room cadets as of now. The dean was even more outrageous as he had only accepted 1 in-room cadet. He wouldn't even bother with regular 6-star bone frames. Only those with special bone frames or those like Li Fuchen who had terrifying perception would be noticed by him. Of course, special bone frames had special circumstances. Only those who possessed extraordinary bone frames and had awakened extraordinary divine abilities could teach them. Wang Heilong didn't have extraordinary bone frames, but the dean had the 6-star fire flame bone frame and had awakened the blazing flame divine ability. He reckoned that the dean would take Wang Heilong in as his in-room student. Sigh. The gray-robed elder let out a sigh. There weren't many cadets that he was interested in at the Heaven Dipper realm. If he missed this one, he didn't know when he would get the next one. Number 1 listed cadet. I, Luo Yen, am fortunate enough to encounter him. I really don't know what kind of dog shit luck I have. Luo Yan looked at the contest stage and was shocked by Li Fuchen, who was as dazzling as the sun. The gray-clothed elder stood up and began to announce the results of the tournament, saying, "This year's listed tournament, first place Li Fuchen, second place Di Jun, third place Zhang Yunfeng, fourth place Wang Heilong, fifth place Zhao Fenghua, sixth place Wu Ji. In the previous rounds, Wang Heilong had defeated Zhao Fenghua, and Zhao Fenghua had defeated Wu Ji. Therefore, Zhao Fenghua's ranking remained unchanged. She was still ranked 5th on the ranking list of young masters. Wu Ji, on the other hand, fell from 3rd to 6th on the ranking list of young masters, which could be described as a precipitous fall. The gray-robed elder was about to continue speaking when he suddenly raised his head and looked towards the eastern side of the stage. There was a black dot in the east. The black dot expanded rapidly and appeared on the stage in the blink of an eye. The gray-robed elder said, "Greetings, Dean. The Outer Academy elders, Class A instructors, and Class B instructors all stood up and greeted respectfully. It was unknown when a white-robed old man had appeared on the stage. The white-robed old man's complexion was rosy, and he had a sage-like demeanor. He had the demeanor of a grandmaster. This white-robed old man is the Southern Forest Martial Institution's dean?" Li Fuchen sized up the white-robed old man. The Southern Forest Martial Institution's dean was one of the few grandmaster experts in the entire Violet Flower Kingdom. It was said that he was at the 8th level of Battle Spirit Realm and had awakened the Blazing Flame Divine ability. He had once melted a mountain peak in a single move and was ranked 15th on the Violet Flower Kingdom's Grandmaster rankings. Don't underestimate the 15th rank. The Violet Flower Kingdom had 24 martial institutions and 2 elite martial institutions. With the addition of the Violet Flower Kingdom's royal clan, there were plenty of pinnacle grandmasters. Among the 24 martial institutions' deans, only 9 of them could be ranked in the top 20 of the grandmaster rankings. "You are this year's number 1 listed cadet." Waving his hand at everyone, the white-robed elder suddenly looked at Li Fuchen with burning eyes. In Li Fuchen's body, the white-robed elder could sense a silver-white extraordinary chi power. This extraordinary chi power had sealed Li Fuchen's chi blood and extraordinary chi power. Turning around, the white-robed elder took a glance at the gray-robed elder. This silver-white extraordinary chi power was called Silver Core Chi Power, and it was the extraordinary chi power that Elder Zheng cultivated. It seemed like Elder Zheng didn't want Li Fuchen to break the balance and had intentionally sealed Li Fuchen's body refinement strength. "Yes, Dean." Li Fuchen cupped his fist. The white-robed elder smiled. "Not bad, not bad. Your body still has remnants of the Green Sun Sword intent. It seems like the Green Sun Sword intent is at a profound level. I, Meng Qihang, have only accepted one in-room cadet. I wonder if you are willing to be my second in-room cadet." Li Fuchen's perception made him feel an unbearable itch in his heart. He knew better than anyone how difficult the Green Sun Sword intent was to cultivate. Back when he was still a cadet of the South Forest Martial Institution, he wasn't able to cultivate the Green Sun Sword intent to the completion rank even at the Reincarnation Realm. As expected, the gray-robed elder let out a bitter smile as a good seedling had been snatched away. "What? The dean accepted an in-room cadet?" After hearing that the white-robed elder was going to accept Li Fuchen as an in-room cadet, everyone was extremely envious. The dean's status was superior to the Nanlin Marquis. After becoming the dean's in-room cadet, Li Fuchen's status would naturally rise and he would be equivalent to the young masters and young ladies of the Nanlin Marquis residence. It wasn't exaggerating to say that Li Fuchen could do anything he wanted in the entire South Forest region. No one would dare to go against him openly, otherwise, they would suffer the wrath of the dean. Even Di Jun and the others were envious. Li Fuchen is willing. As long as one wasn't a fool, no one would reject it. Li Fuchen naturally wasn't a fool. "All right." The white-robed elder revealed a smile. After scanning the area, the white-robed elder's eyes landed on Wang Heilong. He could feel traces of darkness power from Wang Heilong's body. Darkness bone frame? The white-robed elder was very astonished. In the recent century, the Violet Flower Kingdom had never produced a darkness bone frame, and Wang Heilong was the first. If a darkness bone frame was nurtured properly, it would definitely be an invincible existence in the same realm. If Wang Heilong reached the 7th or 8th level of Battle Spirit Realm, he would definitely have the strength of the top 5 or even top 3 of the master rankings. If he could reach the 9th level of Battle Spirit Realm, he would basically have the strength of the number 1 master rankings. Of course, the prerequisite was that the darkness divine ability had to be awakened and developed to a certain degree. What is your name? Do you possess the darkness bone frame? The white-robed elder asked Wang Heilong. Wang Heilong was rather excited as he nodded and said, "Student Wang Heilong possesses the 6-star darkness bone frame." "All right, are you willing to become my in-room cadet too?" "Wang Heilong is willing." Wang Heilong replied quickly. The white-robed elder laughed. He had picked up a bargain this time. A 6-star darkness bone frame would be snatched by the dean in any martial institution. "The two of you follow me." While speaking, the white-robed elder waved his hand and an invisible force wrapped around the duo. In the next moment, the trio vanished together. When they reappeared, they were outside of the secret manual tower. "Dean." The tower guardian elder quickly stood up and greeted with respect. The white-robed elder said, "From today onwards, the two of them shall become my in-room cadets. I will bring them here to choose a cultivation technique." "Yes, Dean." The tower guardian elder looked at the duo with envy. There were plenty of benefits to becoming the dean's in-room cadet. The greatest benefit was that they could directly choose an Earth-class mid-tier cultivation technique. Even outer institute mentors weren't qualified to choose Earth-class mid-tier cultivation techniques. Only inner institute mentors were qualified. Isn't this the kid who chose the green sun sword intent? The tower guardian elder recognized Li Fuchen. Could he have cultivated the green sun sword intent and was accepted as an in-room cadet by the dean? "The two of you can enter and choose any Earth-class mid-tier cultivation technique. But with your current cultivation level, you can only enter the first 24 floors. Beyond the 24 floors, it will depend on your performance and contributions to the college." The white-robed elder turned around and said to Li Fuchen and Wang Heilong, "Many thanks, D." Li Fuchen and Wang Heilong were in a daze. Randomly choosing an Earth-class mid-tier cultivation technique? Wasn't this a huge leap? Even though it was only the first 24 floors. Nodding, the white-robed elder continued, "I don't have much to guide you now. We will talk again after you become inner institute cadets." Finishing his statement, the white-robed elder flashed and vanished. "The two of you are in luck to be able to cultivate Earth-class mid-tier cultivation techniques at such a young age." Once the white-robed elder left, the tower guardian elder laughed and said, Wang Heilong grinned. "Kid, did you really cultivate the green sun sword intent?" The tower guardian elder couldn't suppress his curiosity and asked Li Fuchen. "Fortunately, I didn't disappoint you." Li Fuchen cupped his fist. "Fortunately, you didn't disappoint me. What a little maniac." The tower guardian elder waved his hand and allowed the two of them to enter the tower. With the authorization given by the dean, the two of them immediately arrived at the 4th floor of the secret manual tower. On this floor, there were very few manuals, but each of them was enough to cause a storm of blood. The two of them didn't bother to speak and started to pick out the manuals one by one. Xianxia Divine Technique, Earth-class mid-tier cultivation technique. It can cultivate Xianxia Qi. When a reincarnation realm martial artist cultivates it, it can increase their lifespan by 50%. When a battle spirit realm master cultivates it, it can increase their lifespan by 30%. The Xianxia Qi is indestructible and has the transformation of hardness and softness. When cultivated to a profound realm, it can be used to heal one's own injuries and can also be used to heal others. It is actually a Qi cultivation technique that can increase lifespan and has healing effects. Li Fuchen was shocked. Cultivation techniques that could increase lifespan were extremely rare. There were some people who were stuck in a certain realm and couldn't break through until their death. But if they cultivated the first Heaven-defying technique, their lifespan would increase drastically and they would definitely be able to break through their limits and reach a higher level. Martial arts that had healing effects were also rare. In a battle, it was inevitable for martial artists to get injured. In the absence of elixirs, that first heaven-defying art would undoubtedly increase the survival ability of the cultivator. Minor injuries could be directly ignored, and even serious injuries would gradually turn into minor ones. The combination of the two was extremely rare. Furthermore, the first heaven-defying technique wasn't weak and wasn't a support technique. Chapter 390. The power of the first heaven-defying technique made Li Fuchen look forward to other Earth-class mid-tier cultivation techniques. Earth-class mid-tier cultivation techniques weren't considered low-tier in the entire seven-color continent. According to Li Fuchen's knowledge, only the royal family possessed an Earth-class high-tier cultivation technique in the Violet Flower Kingdom. Earth-class peak-tier cultivation techniques above that were only possessed by the Red Rainbow sect that ruled the Red Soil continent. At the current stage, Li Fuchen didn't have the opportunity to touch Earth-class high-tier cultivation techniques or even Earth-class peak-tier cultivation techniques. Therefore, Earth-class mid-tier cultivation techniques were his best choice. Putting down the first heaven-defying technique manual, Li Fuchen flipped open the second Earth-class mid-tier cultivation technique manual. Reverse Sutra, Earth-class mid-tier cultivation technique. This cultivation technique will become stronger when encountering strong opponents and water. It is adept at sustained battles and will become stronger as the battle progresses. It is a combat cultivation technique, and when cultivated to a profound rank, it can reverse the qi and turn the enemy's qi into your own, allowing you to burst out with stronger lethality. The second Earth-class mid-tier cultivation technique manual caused Li Fuchen to be stunned again. Stronger when encountering strong opponents? Stronger when encountering water? Sustained battles? Getting stronger as the battle progresses? It could even reverse the qi and turn the enemy's qi into your own? This was simply heaven-defying. To a certain extent, it was possible to skip levels in combat. Earth-class mid-tier cultivation techniques. Are all of them so insane? Li Fuchen grinned. Li Fuchen flipped open the third Earth-class mid-tier cultivation technique manual. Divine Wind 9 Movements, Earth-class mid-tier cultivation technique. This cultivation technique is the combination of a qi cultivation technique and a light body technique. Once cultivated, the speed will be unparalleled. A single movement will surpass the reaction speed of martial artists of the same realm. When cultivated to a profound rank, the world will be vast and you can advance or retreat. Even if you encounter multiple formidable enemies, you can still escape with ease. After reading the introduction of the Divine Wind 9 movements, Li Fuchen felt numb. An Earth-class mid-tier cultivation technique was simply unbelievable. Li Fuchen could imagine that if there were two individuals with the same cultivation level, one of them cultivated an Earth-class mid-tier cultivation technique while the other didn't, the latter would be in despair. But these aren't what I want. Li Fuchen might not have the blazing flame bone frame, but he had been cultivating blazing heat cultivation techniques. Therefore, he hoped that the Earth-class mid-tier cultivation technique he was going to cultivate would also be blazing heat cultivation techniques. With past experiences, he would be able to increase his cultivation technique rank faster. Finally, the fourth book was a scorching heat cultivation technique. Ardent Sun Divine Technique, Earth-class mid-tier cultivation technique. This cultivation technique is extremely tyrannical and explosive. It has an extremely high requirement for one's physique. In order to cultivate to the 21st rank, one's body refinement must be at the reincarnation realm. In order to cultivate to the 24th rank, one's body refinement must be at the subcompletion level of the reincarnation realm. In order to cultivate to the 27th rank, one's body refinement must be at the completion level of the reincarnation realm. This cultivation technique doesn't have any complicated characteristics and only has extreme lethality and destructive power. When activated by the ardent sun qi, it can incinerate metal and iron. After reading the introduction of the ardent sun divine technique, Li Fuchen's eyes lit up. This fiery heat cultivation method was too suitable for him. Although it didn't have any complicated features, It might not be comprehensive, but it was because of this that it could burst out with the strongest lethality, and what Li Fuchen wanted was the strongest lethality. Being invincible in the same realm was not his goal. As long as he was given enough time and advanced martial arts techniques, it would be easy for him to be invincible in the same realm. What he wanted was the strength to fight across realms. For example, in the reincarnation realm, one could rely on one's own strength to fight across 3, 4, or even 5 or 6 levels. With the blue-class spirit soul, Li Fuchen believed that everything wouldn't be difficult. Furthermore, there must be a higher-class spirit soul above the blue-class spirit soul. By then, Li Fuchen's perception would definitely increase by several times. This shall be it. Li Fuchen picked up the Ardent Sun Divine Technique Manual. Of course, in order to not miss anything, Li Fuchen had also casually flipped through all the other Earth-class mid-tier cultivation technique manuals. But apart from the Ardent Sun Divine Technique, there wasn't a second fiery heat cultivation technique. Arriving at the entrance of the first floor of the secret manual tower, Li Fuchen handed the Ardent Sun Divine Technique manual to the Tower Guardian Elder. The Tower Guardian Elder took a look at the name of the manual and said speechlessly, "Kid, you are really picking the hardest ones. You don't have the Blazing Flame bone frame and you can choose other Earth-class mid-tier cultivation techniques. Like the first Heaven-defying technique, which is rather good. It will allow you to have a longer lifespan and break through realms." He was cultivating the first Heaven-defying technique. Of course, it was only the first 24 ranks. In order to cultivate the last 3 ranks, one would have to make great contributions to the college or be promoted to an inner institute elder. Li Fuchen said, "I don't need that much lifespan." The Tower Guardian Elder choked and took out the first 24 ranks of the Ardent Sun Divine Technique and handed it to Li Fuchen. He then waved his hand and said, "Hurry up and leave. This is too much of a blow." After leaving the secret manual tower and returning to his courtyard, someone delivered 2,000 low-grade spirit stones. This was the reward for the number 1 listed cadet. With the addition of his own low-grade spirit stones, Li Fuchen had 6,000 low-grade spirit stones again. At the current stage, it was already enough. After all, he had yet to break through to the reincarnation realm and didn't require so many low-grade spirit stones. After keeping the 2,000 low-grade spirit stones, Li Fuchen started his seclusion. He had already wasted enough time. It had already been more than half a year since he broke through to the highest rank of the true Inferno technique. If he used this half a year's worth of time, it would be enough for him to cultivate the Ardent Sun Divine Technique to the 20th rank or even the 21st rank. The Ardent Sun Divine Technique was an Earth-class mid-tier cultivation technique. The 19th rank was equivalent to the 21st rank of the true Inferno technique and was slightly stronger. There were times when having a high perception. The speed of changing cultivation techniques and martial arts had to be fast, otherwise, it would be a waste of time. After flipping through the first 9 ranks of the Ardent Sun Divine Technique, Li Fuchen praised, "The Ardent Sun Divine Technique is indeed formidable." The first 9 ranks are all about building the foundation and constantly condensing and tempering the Ardent Sun core. Only with a stable foundation can one continue to cultivate, otherwise, the body will explode and die. In a single night, Li Fuchen cultivated the Ardent Sun Divine Technique to the 9th rank. In Li Fuchen's Dantian, the true Inferno Qi had already been scattered and had covered the entire Dantian. In the center of the Dantian, there was a dazzling light stone. This light stone was the Ardent Sun Core. But the Ardent Sun Core wasn't condensed and pure enough and required more tempering. 3 days later, the light stone gradually transformed and wasn't as illusory anymore. It gradually turned into a bright red jade stone. 1 week later, the Ardent Sun Core was like a scarlet red crystal that was extremely condensed. At this moment, Li Fuchen could actually continue to cultivate the 10th rank of the Ardent Sun Divine Technique. But Li Fuchen wasn't in a hurry. His perception was exceptional and was far superior to 6-star bone frames. Even 7-star bone frames might not be comparable to him. Therefore, when cultivating the Ardent Sun Divine Technique, 1 week of hard work was equivalent to a few months or even half a year of hard work for others. Since his perception was so good, He naturally had to make use of it and build an indestructible foundation. 1 month later, the ardent sun core in Li Fuchen's Dantian was like a bright red metal sphere. The bright red metal sphere's surface was extremely glossy and there wasn't a trace of flaw. It was a phenomenon after being compressed by countless times. If the dean was here, he would definitely be shocked. Even a peak-level reincarnation realm martial artist who cultivated the ardent sun divine technique wouldn't be able to build such a firm foundation. It wasn't just about perception, it also required a strong body quality. If the body quality wasn't high enough, the Dantian wouldn't be sturdy enough. If the Dantian wasn't sturdy enough, it naturally wouldn't be able to create a high-pressure and high-temperature state. Apart from that, the spirit will was also extremely important. If the spirit will wasn't strong enough, it wouldn't be possible. The most important thing was the awareness. If the awareness wasn't strong enough, it would be impossible. Only with a strong awareness would the ardent sun core be so exquisite. Li Fuchen's awareness was comparable to a battle spirit realm master. It might be called awareness, but it was actually considered spiritual awareness. It might not have some other functions of spiritual awareness, but in terms of strength, it wasn't inferior. Li Fuchen only started to cultivate the 10th rank of the Ardent Sun Divine technique after the Ardent Sun core turned into a bright red metal sphere. Huff huff. His Dantian was filled with true Inferno Qi. With the absorption of the Ardent Sun core, a large amount of true Inferno Qi was absorbed and rapidly converted into Ardent Sun Qi. 11th rank, 12th rank, 13th rank, 18th rank, 19th rank, 20th rank. In the second month, Li Fuchen broke through to the 20th rank of the Ardent Sun Divine technique in one go. The 20th rank of the Ardent Sun Divine technique's power was far superior to the true Inferno technique. It was even stronger than the 21st rank of an Earth-class low-tier cultivation technique. If Li Fuchen and Di Jun were to fight again, Li Fuchen would be able to instantly kill Di Jun. After all, in terms of Qi quality, Li Fuchen was already superior to Di Jun. Furthermore, Li Fuchen's sword art was much stronger than Di Jun. I shall strive to break through another rank. Li Fuchen didn't plan to attend classes and continued his seclusion. In regards to this, Su Chunhua was very helpless. As a mentor, he was afraid that the students would disturb him, but he was also afraid that the students wouldn't need him. This was the feeling that Li Fuchen gave him. It seemed like Li Fuchen didn't need anyone's guidance and could rely on his own cultivation to dominate all the students of the same level. As a mentor, Su Chunhua was simply a figurehead. Sigh, perhaps only the dean can be his mentor. In class, when Su Chunhua thought about Li Fuchen, he couldn't help but shake his head. 21st rank. On the martial arts field in the courtyard, Li Fuchen's body was emitting boundless blazing radiance. If the highest rank of the true Inferno technique was like the sun, then the 21st rank of the Ardent Sun Divine technique was like the sun that was closer to the earth. The sun was high up in the sky and the radiance might be blazing, but it was still within the range of human endurance. But once the sun approached the earth, the blazing Qi presence that could incinerate everything was enough to destroy and roast everything. In Li Fuchen's Dantian, there was a miniature sun that was revolving. On the surface of the miniature sun, there were streams of lava that were spurting out. But under the attraction of the ardent sun core, the lava returned to the surface of the miniature sun. Boom! Standing up, Li Fuchen blasted a fist at the martial arts field's array barrier. The dazzling fist light made it hard to open one's eyes, while the array barrier rippled. This fist is almost enough to severely injure a regular first-level reincarnation realm martial artist. As Li Fuchen cultivated the Ardent Sun Divine technique, regular mystic-class fist arts weren't able to provide any amplification effects. Because the Ardent Sun Divine technique had an amplification effect, only mystic-class high-tier fist arts would be able to increase his fist force. The higher the martial artist's cultivation realm, the more useless low-tier martial arts would be. Chapter 391. After cultivating the Ardent Sun Divine technique to the 21st rank, Li Fuchen stopped his seclusion. He reckoned that he would need at least a few months or even half a year to cultivate the Ardent Sun Divine technique to the 22nd rank. The further he went, the harder it would be to break through. Of course, once Li Fuchen progressed to the reincarnation realm, the difficulty would be much lower. 4 months had passed since the listed tournament and the Outer Institute had already regained its peace. On the way, Li Fuchen heard a few Outer Institute cadets discussing Dijun. Did you hear? Senior Dijun progressed to the reincarnation realm half a month ago and is officially an Inner Institute disciple. Incredible! Senior Dijun is only 31 years old this year. He is considered a first-rate prodigy to progress to the reincarnation realm at the age of 31. Isn't that right? Progressing to the reincarnation realm at the age of 35 is already considered a prodigy. Sigh, I wonder when we can progress to the reincarnation realm. It is said that even a 6-star bone frame would need around 2 years to progress from the peak level of Heaven Dipper realm to the first level of reincarnation realm. Look, it is Senior Li Fuchen. When a few of them saw Li Fuchen, they instantly revealed a look of respect. Some busybodies had already named Li Fuchen as the strongest freshman in the South Forest martial institutions past 100 years. They even said that Li Fuchen had hopes of making it to the master ranking in the future. The so-called master ranking was actually the reincarnation realm ranking. Those that were ranked in the master ranking were all elite reincarnation realm experts. Most of them had awakened extraordinary divine abilities and all of them had heaven-defying strength and were considered invincible in the same realm. It was a very high evaluation to have hopes of making it to the master ranking. After all, Li Fuchen only had a 3-star bone frame and it wasn't an extraordinary bone frame. After hearing everyone's words, Li Fuchen let out a faint smile. He didn't really care about the reputation. If he had strength, he would have the reputation too. If he didn't have the strength, even if he had the reputation, it was just an illusion that would be broken with a single poke. He wouldn't pursue the reputation, he pursued strength and everything else was just a byproduct. This was Li Fuchen's first class in the past 4 months. Su Chunhua was rather overwhelmed by the favor and was doing his best to explain the theoretical knowledge. Time passed by, Li Fuchen's cultivation base has already reached Heavenly Dipper Realm peak from Heavenly Dipper Realm 9th layer, but the distance from Shedding Body Realm 1st layer is still unknown. At least Li Fuchen can't even feel the realm barrier. In normal situations, a 6-star bone frame would need around 2 years to break through. My bone frame is very weak and I can only rely on the Ardent Sun Divine technique. But the 21st rank of the Ardent Sun Divine technique isn't enough for me to surpass a 6-star bone frame. A 6-star bone frame would need around 2 years. The current me would need at least 3 to 4 years. The higher the grade of the bone frame, the faster the cultivation speed, and the faster the breakthrough speed. Li Fuchen's cultivation speed in Heavenly Dipper Realm is not worse than any 6-star root bone, mainly because he has a perfect form of Heavenly Dipper Battle Imprint. But if you want to sprint Shedding Body Realm, Heavenly Dipper Battle Imprint is useless, which must rely on their own cultivation talent. If Li Fuchen relied on his cultivation talent, even if he cultivated the Ardent Sun Divine technique to the 21st rank, he would only be comparable with elite 4-star bone frames. He wouldn't even be comparable with 5-star bone frames, let alone 6-star bone frames. I am now 26 years old. Before 28 years old, I must advance to the reincarnation realm. Li Fuchen set a goal for himself. Of course, if he could step into the reincarnation realm earlier, it would naturally be better, but he had to have fated chances. Senior Fuchen. On this day, on a small path in the Outer Institute, there was a clear and crisp voice that echoed from afar. Li Fuchen turned around and couldn't help but raise his brows. The person that called out to him was the Nanlin Marquis Residence's 3rd young lady, Yunyu. Before Li Fuchen became a cadet of the South Forest Martial Institution, he had seen Yunyu once in South Forest City. Back then, Yunyu was escorted by a group of people and had a noble aura. Luo Yen even asked him not to provoke her, in case he brought huge trouble to himself. Right now, he was the in-room cadet of the South Forest Martial Institution's dean and his status wasn't inferior to the Nanlin Marquis Residence's young lady. He was on equal footing with her and with his strength and talent, it wasn't strange for her to address him as a senior. Yunyu, is there a matter? Li Fuchen asked. Yunyu sized up Li Fuchen. After cultivating the ardent sun divine technique and reaching the 21st rank, Li Fuchen looked slightly different from 4 months ago. His chi presence might be very reserved, but he was still emitting an extraordinary grand and glorious chi presence. For a moment, Yunyu couldn't help but take another look. Seeing Li Fuchen asking her, Yunyu replied, Senior Fuchen, 3 days later, there will be a Heaven Dipper Realm class tea party in the South Forest region. Apart from our institution's outer institute cadets, there will also be cadets from other martial institutions. I hope that you can participate. Tea party? I don't have much interest. Li Fuchen immediately rejected. He wasn't interested in such a boring tea party and it was a waste of time. Yunyu pursed her lips and said, Senior Fuchen, this tea party will be held at Grandmaster Everyouth's Everlasting Youth Garden. Grandmaster Everyouth will take out 4 clear spirit fruits as the prize and let us distribute them freely. Grandmaster Everyouth? Clear spirit fruits? Li Fuchen's eyes narrowed. Grandmaster Everyouth was a concoction grandmaster. He didn't just have battle spirit realm cultivation, he could also refine earth-class high-tier elixirs. His reputation was even above Marquis Nanlin and the South Forest Martial Institution's dean. He was one of the top 10 concoction grandmasters of the Violet Flower Kingdom. The clear spirit fruit was a fruit that was produced by a spirit tree. It was said that the fruit's medicinal effects weren't inferior to top-notch earth-class low-tier elixirs. It could allow a person's cultivation speed to increase drastically for a certain period of time. It was also very effective for breakthroughs and many people yearned for it. Why is Grandmaster Everyouth willing to take out 4 clear spirit fruits as the prize? Li Fuchen didn't understand. To Grandmaster Everyouth, 4 clear spirit fruits that were worth 4 earth-class mid-tier elixirs might not be considered much, but no one was a fool to take out something without any benefits. Yunyu said, Actually, this tea party has a long history. In the past, the tea parties would basically be held at the Everlasting Youth Garden. There are Heaven Dipper Realm tea parties and Reincarnation Realm tea parties. The prize for Reincarnation Realm tea parties is 10 clear spirit fruits and other precious treasures. Is that so? Li Fuchen might not understand, but he didn't continue guessing. The train of thought of a battle spirit realm master wasn't something he could guess. Perhaps it was purely because he had nothing better to do and wanted to liven up his everlasting youth garden. Perhaps he wanted to observe which juniors were worth nurturing. Alright, I shall go. The clear spirit fruit was rather attractive to Li Fuchen. Anything that could increase his cultivation speed was worth his effort. Then it is decided. Yunyu revealed a smile. The participants of the tea party were all outer institute elites from the various martial institutions. If Li Fuchen didn't attend, their South Forest Martial Institution wouldn't have anyone to hold the fort. By then, it would be embarrassing. As the 3rd young lady of the Nanlin Marquis residence and also an outer institute cadet of the South Forest Martial Institution, she was most afraid of losing face. After confirming that Li Fuchen would attend the tea party, Yunyu left and started to invite the other outer institute elites. The clear spirit fruit's medicinal effects are mystical. After refining the clear spirit elixir, the grade would reach the earth-class mid-tier elixir. The clear spirit elixir is priceless and with my qualifications, I wouldn't be able to buy it even if I wanted to. Grandmaster Everyouth would only sell 30 clear spirit elixirs every year and they were basically all reserved by various tyrants. As for the clear spirit tree, there were only 3 stalks in the entire Violet Flower Kingdom. 1 stalk was with Grandmaster Everyouth, 1 stalk was with the Violet Flower Kingdom's royal clan, and 1 stalk was with one of the 4 major clans of the Violet Flower Kingdom, the Hua clan. If Li Fuchen lost this opportunity, it was the same as losing a chance to increase his cultivation speed. 3 days passed by quickly. Senior Fuchen. Outside the South Forest Martial Institution's entrance, Yunyu was already waiting. Beside her were Zhang Yunfeng, Wu Ji, Lin Chao, and the other listed cadets. With Li Fuchen, there were 6 listed cadets. Apart from Di Jun, Wang Heilong, Zhao Fenghua, and another listed cadet, all the listed cadets were here. Sorry for the wait. Li Fuchen nodded. Since everyone is here, let's set off. Yun Yu had already prepared the unicorn wildebeest and was the first to mount. The rest of the people had also mounted. On the way, Lin Chao said, "There are Outer Institute elites from 7 martial institutions participating in this tea party. Is it enough to rely on us?" Di Jun has already progressed to the reincarnation realm and it is impossible for him to participate. Wang Heilong is in seclusion and Zhao Fenghua isn't willing to come. Zhang Yunfeng shook his head. If Di Jun was able to come, they would have 2 trump cards. After all, during the listed tournament 4 months ago, Di Jun was only slightly inferior to Li Fuchen. It wasn't safe to rely on Li Fuchen alone. After all, there were 7 Outer Institute elites from 7 martial institutions participating in the tea party. The probability of encountering powerful figures was too high. Especially, among these 7 martial institutions, 3 martial institutions had strength that surpassed the South Forest Martial Institution. One of them was even ranked 3rd among the 24 martial institutions. Among them, it was estimated that the weakest disciple on the human list was quite extraordinary and might not be worse than Zhang Yunfeng. Hearing the statement, everyone, including Yun Yu, didn't have much confidence. Di Jun, Wang Heilong, and Zhao Fenghua were all elites among elites. Without the 3 of them, the South Forest Martial Institution's overall strength would be worrying. Li Fuchen was the only one that was slightly safer, but it might not be too safe. If the 3 of them were able to come, their overall strength would be greatly increased. Even if they lost, they would still have some face and wouldn't suffer a crushing defeat. The South Forest Martial Institution wasn't far from the South Forest City. In just a short moment, the group arrived at the South Forest City. After entering the city, the 7 of them headed straight for Grandmaster Ever-Youth's Everlasting Youth Garden. Not long after Li Fuchen and the others entered the city, at the center of the South Forest City, there was a tall platform that was circulating with radiance. A group of people instantly appeared. This was a spatial teleportation platform. Every county city in the Violet Flower Kingdom had a spatial teleportation platform. Through the spatial teleportation platform, one could instantly reach any county city. The spatial teleportation fee wasn't expensive and only required 100 low-grade spirit stones per trip. After all, this was only a teleportation between counties. If it was a teleportation between kingdoms, it would be expensive. If it was a teleportation between continents, most of the reincarnation realm experts wouldn't be able to afford it. Some of the continents that were further away would even be strenuous for regular battle spirit realm masters. Of course, the prerequisite was that the 2 continents had a spatial teleportation platform that could sense each other. Chapter 393. The South Forest Martial Institution is ranked below the middle of the 24 martial institutions. If it wasn't for the 4 clear spirit fruits as a wager, our evergreen martial institution would be lowering our status by coming here. A group of 8 individuals walked down from the spatial teleportation platform. Among them, there was a tanned and rather handsome youth that spoke arrogantly. There are only 3 clear spirit trees in the entire Violet Flower Kingdom. The clear spirit fruit might be countless times less valuable, but it can allow us to step into the reincarnation realm faster. Furthermore, there won't be any side effects. It is still worth it. Another gorgeous lady let out a faint smile as her eyes landed on the stern-looking youth that was the leader. The stern-looking youth had a tall stature. His eyes were like blades that seemed to be able to cut a person's soul spirit. He spoke, "My evergreen martial institution is ranked number 5 among the 24 martial institutions. For this tea party, don't let the evergreen martial institution's reputation be tarnished. Lung Feng, we might not be as strong as you, but we are still confident when compared to those weak chickens." The tanned youth that spoke first spoke with confidence. While speaking, the corner of his mouth revealed a disdainful sneer. "Let's go. I have been yearning for Grandmaster Ever-Youth's Everlasting Youth Garden. It is said that there are countless exotic flowers and herbs. I wonder if the rumors are true," said the gorgeous lady. Lung Feng nodded as the group headed towards the Everlasting Youth Garden. Not long after Lung Feng and his group left, the spatial teleportation platform radiated with radiance again as 6 figures appeared on the platform. So this is the South Forest City? It looks rather flourishing. It is indeed worthy of being one of the top 10 cities in the Violet Flower Kingdom. I wonder how are the Outer Institute elites of the South Forest Martial Institution. I hope they won't disappoint me. The youth with the crew cut was extremely robust. Every muscle on his body was very distinct. His arms were crossed and he had an indifferent expression. He gave off the feeling that he was a human-shaped Tyrannosaurus that was strolling around with a terrifying and oppressive aura. Wang Jian, with your strength, I reckon that even those Outer Institute elites from the top-ranked martial institutions wouldn't be a match for you. The other 5 looked at the crew-cut youth with eyes of reverence. Wang Jian was ranked first in the Scarlet Tiger Martial Institution's list of cadets. In this year's list of cadets tournament, no one could withstand a single move from him, including the second ranker. They were all sent flying with a single punch or kicked off the stage with a single kick. His strength was extremely shocking. Hearing the flattery of these people, Wang Jian's expression remained indifferent. There is always someone better out there. Among the participants of this tea party, there are people from the Evergreen Martial Institution. There must be experts among them. Of course, even if they are experts, I, Wang Jian, will defeat them with my iron fists. Everlasting Youth Garden was a garden that occupied thousands of acres of land. In a place like Nanlin City where every inch of land was worth its weight in gold, having a garden that spanned several thousand acres could no longer be described as illustrious. One must know that even the Nanlin Marquee Manor wasn't so big. There were plenty of martial artists guarding the Everlasting Youth Garden, and the weakest among them was at the Heaven Dipper realm. There were plenty of Reincarnation realm martial artists too. Even though the Everlasting Youth Garden was enveloped by countless array formations, these array formations were basically used to protect the herb farm. Without anyone guarding it, it was inevitable that someone would sneak in and disturb Grandmaster Ever-Youth's peace and quiet. At the entrance of the Everlasting Youth Garden, 2 Heaven Realm martial artists stood guard. Who goes there? The Heaven Realm martial artist on the left obstructed Li Fuchen's group and asked coldly. Yun Yu raised the token in her hand and said, "We have already obtained Grandmaster Ever-Youth's permission. This is the Everlasting Youth token." The Heaven Realm martial artist on the right walked forward and received the token. After sensing it carefully, he noticed that it indeed contained Grandmaster Ever-Youth's chi presence and the token was real. "Please enter." The 2 of them gestured with their hands and had a neither servile nor overbearing attitude. "Come, let's enter." Yun Yu led the way and entered the Everlasting Youth Garden. Once they entered the Everlasting Youth Garden, the group was shocked by the herb farm. As far as the eye could see, there were herb farms everywhere. Some of the herb farms were filled with exotic flowers, some of the herb farms were filled with strands of strange-looking herbs, and some of the herb farms were filled with small trees that were filled with fruits. Looking at the chi waves emitted by the fruits, how could they not know that these weren't ordinary trees? They were spirit trees that contained heaven and earth spirit chi. In a situation of the same tier, a single spirit tree would be worth 1,000 times more than a herb. Of course, these herb farms were all enveloped by arrays. Li Fuchen scanned with his awareness and noticed that these arrays were all Class 5 arrays. Furthermore, they weren't ordinary Class 5 arrays. It was reckoned that a regular peak-level reincarnation realm martial artist might not be able to break these arrays within a short period of time. Apart from the herb farms, there were plenty of viewing pavilions in the Everlasting Youth Garden. These viewing pavilions had excellent locations, and while sitting inside, they could enjoy the beautiful scenery of the herb farms and the crisscrossing rivers. As they walked deeper, they unknowingly arrived at the depths of the Everlasting Youth Garden. Isn't this the Earth-class low-tier herb, the golden grass? There are actually so many of them here? The number 10 listed cadet, Lin Chao, asked with astonishment. The golden grass was an Earth-class low-tier herb and it got its name due to its golden color. Lin Chao wouldn't be so surprised if there were 8 or 10 stalks of the golden grass. But the number of golden grasses in this herb farm wasn't just 8 or 10 stalks. There were hundreds of them. A stalk of golden grass was worth about 10 low-grade spirit stones. Hundreds of golden grass would be worth a few thousand low-grade spirit stones. One had to know that this was just a medicinal field, and the Everlasting Youth Garden had a lot of medicinal fields. No wonder it is Grandmaster Ever Youth. No wonder it is the #1 garden in the South Forest region, the Everlasting Youth Garden. Zhang Yunfeng was also very emotional. It was said that alchemy masters were extremely wealthy, but Zhang Yunfeng hadn't personally witnessed it before. Now that he saw it, he realized that alchemy masters were much wealthier than he imagined. A regular reincarnation realm martial artist's wealth would only be able to purchase a single herb farm here. Yun Yu introduced, Grandmaster Ever Youth is even wealthier than my Nanlin Marquis residence. As they continued to walk forward, there was a patch of fog that obstructed them. Raising the Everlasting Youth token, Yun Yu entered the fog with familiarity while everyone else followed closely behind. After passing through the fog, they arrived at a spacious area that was extremely concentrated with spirit qi. The qi concentration here is at least 10 times that of the outside world. Li Fuchen was shocked. The 7-color continent's qi concentration was already very high. What kind of concept was 10 times more concentrated? It was just like soaking in a sea of qi. With a single breath, strands of qi would be absorbed into the body. At the same time, the pores would open up and absorb the qi. Although the effects of using spirit stones to cultivate were very good. But there was still a difference between the two. One would be soaking in the qi and the body would be tempered by the qi. The other would be using qi to absorb the qi from the spirit stones. If the body wasn't tempered by the qi, it might not be obvious in a short period of time. But in the long run, people who lived in places with concentrated qi would definitely have stronger body qualities. It would also be easier for their children to possess high-grade bone frames. Soon enough, everyone knew why this place was so concentrated with qi. Apart from the qi gathering array, the main reason was that there was a tree that was dozens of meters in height. The tree crown covered a radius of 100 meters. The tree was also bearing pink fruits that were the size of a human head. Earth-class mid-tier spirit tree. Clear spirit tree. In the case of the same level, the value of a spirit tree was about 1,000 times that of a medicinal herb. A mid-rank Earth-class medicinal herb was worth 100 to a few hundred low-grade spirit stones, while a mid-rank Earth-class spirit tree was worth 100,000 to a few 100,000 low-grade spirit stones. Welcome to Immortal Cultivation Audiobooks, your gateway to the mystical world of Xianxia. Dive into legendary tales of martial arts, spiritual growth, and immortal ascension. Here, we bring you full-length English audiobooks of the best Wuxia and Xianxia stories, from young prodigies to ancient sect wars. Perfect for fans of Against the Gods, Martial World, and tales of demons and gods.